So in today's class, we're going to be talking about AWS organization. Before we jump into discussing about AWS organization, let's see how access are being given on AWS. If you are managing access to a single AWS account, like most of you now that have AWS accounts, you only have one AWS account. But organization, companies, enterprise, they don't use one account for all their activities or all their resources. They use multiple AWS accounts, minimum of 2. I've worked with organizations that use 6 accounts. I've worked with organizations that use 20 accounts. And at the same time, I've worked with organizations that use 2,000 accounts. So, and one of my students has an organization that their account is almost 500. So it depends on organization and how big an organization is that will determine how big their account is and how they are addressing security issues. So when you have one AWS account and you have to manage access to that account, well, the main way of managing access to that account is just creating a user in that account because it's just one. Then when you create user in that account, you give the user the access key. I mean, either the access key and the secret key or the username and the password. But when you are dealing with multiple users that can do exactly the same thing, let's say you have 3 users. Maybe you are the account manager, I mean the IM engineer of your company, and you are tasked with creating user or granting access to, let's say, 5 developers. If the 5 developers can do exactly the same thing, then the best way is to grant them access as group. Because one way that you can grant access is that you create user 1, user 2, user up to user 5, and then you now attach permission to each user. You attach permission to each user. This means of granting permission or access to user is not scalable, because what if your organization has 2,000 users? Are you going to continue creating accounts and attach permission for each user, which is not scalable? So the best option in this kind of scenario is to add all the user in a group. User 1 up to user 2,000. Yeah, you still have to create those users in one account. Then once you have them in the account, can you guys see me? My internet is unstable. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So you create all the users in one account, then you can now have them as a group. So instead of attaching permission to this user, because all of them can do the same thing, technically you're going to give them the same permission. You just attach just one single permission to the group. So any members of this group will be able to perform whatever the permission says. So that is how to manage access to for multiple users that can do the same thing in one account. You use group. But when you are dealing with multiple accounts, then everything change when you are dealing with multiple accounts. This is what I just explained now. You have all the users in group and you attach permissions to the group. That's the best way if you are managing one single account. But in a situation whereby you are managing multiple accounts, where are you going to say that, okay, we are going to create the users, all of them, then add them to the group in one account and do the same thing, add all the users to the group in another account, and then do the same thing in the third account? Well, this is okay, but it's not scalable. What if you have 2,000 accounts or more than that? Are you going to be creating all the users in every account? So in organization, you tend to do things that is scalable, because your organization might be small today, but tomorrow they might be large. And if you create things because they are small today and you create that thing without forecasting or without thinking for the future, then by the time they are like that, means you have to start all over again. Company doesn't do that. They always create their thing so that if they, but fortunately, expand tomorrow, they just need to expand the same system. They don't have to go and create the entire thing from scratch again. So when you are creating access for multiple users, then you want to also put in mind that the company can increase in their employee turnover can increase in future or something, things like that. So the other way to manage multiple users in multiple accounts is by creating all the groups in one account. Then instead of creating the groups in the remaining accounts, you can just create what is called a role, which is just a set of permission that whoever that has that role can do. You create that in the second account and you create the role in the third account and all of them too. Then you now attach permissions to that role. So you notice here that you are not creating all the users in the other accounts. You only create all the users in one account. Then what you create in the remaining accounts is just the role. This is the role that just say, okay, this account, I'm giving permission. But who you are giving that permission to, you do not specify it. You don't create the user. You just set the permission that, okay, I'm going to create this permission here. It's just like if you have a company, then you employ some people. Maybe you employ the first person, you give the first person his desk and his chair. Sorry, I don't know how to draw this chair, but just manage this chair. Let's just say this is chair. So you give the first person his desk and his chair, and then you do the same thing for the second person and the third person. Then you now say, oh, we need a cashier, but currently you don't have anybody as cashier. So you can just create a chair and a table for cashier, but there's nobody that is going to handle that post yet. So any one of this person that is free can just come here and have like a cashier. So this is exactly how the role is. You create the role down, but you don't attach it to anybody. So any of these users that need access in this second account, we just do what we call an assume role. We assume the role. When they assume the role that they are currently using or the permission that they currently have, they are going to drop that and they are going to be housing as this role. So go back to this example that I gave you. Let's assume that this person here is, let's say this person here is let's say this is the marketer. Let's say this is one of the marketer. So if this marketer is the one that is acting like a cashier, is going to drop the role of a marketer and is going to assume the role of a cashier. So during that time, she won't be able to do anything in marketing. She will only be doing cashier responsibility. And when she's done with cashier responsibility, she's going to leave this table and come back to her marketing. And the same thing with AWS here. If any of this, when they assume this role, they won't be able to do anything developer again, or they can do in these accounts until they stop assuming the role. They can assume this role and they can as well assume this role too. So they can assume any of the role. So that's another means of creating access to users. But when you are managing multiple accounts, where you don't want to be managing the accounts as an individual, because what we've seen earlier is that we are managing these 3 accounts as an individual account. You do things here, you do things here, you do things here. Whatever you do here is different. This account can control anything that happens in this account. This account can control anything that happens in this account. And don't forget that there is something called the root users. Each account, they also have their root users. That is the email that creates that account, root user. So the root user of each account has 100% authorization on each of the accounts. And it can delete this rule, it can ban anybody from coming to the account. So the root user is still the most powerful user in each of the accounts. So what companies do is that they don't want this kind of architecture or this kind of behavior. So to manage multiple accounts, what we do is that we're going to put all the accounts as an organization. We're going to put them under one single umbrella. Like all of the accounts, we're going to manage them centrally so that no account is powerful that it can do and undo. But what we need is that we just need one account to be the powerful account, and that powerful account will control every other account. So that is the purpose of the AWS organization. The AWS organization is an account management service that enables you to consolidate and manage multiple AWS accounts within a central location. So when you are managing multiple accounts, all you just need to do is to put all of them under one single organization. And when you put them under one single organization, what it simply means is that the root user for each of the accounts, you can now control the root user. Before, if you're managing accounts individually, account by account, the root user is the most powerful in each of the accounts, so you can't control it. But when you put all of them under organization, then the root user will indirectly becomes an IAM user. It's not that it becomes an IAM user, but you can limit what it can do, just the way you can limit what an IAM user can also do. But the major thing about AWS organization is that you manage multiple accounts centrally. You don't manage them one by one. You can create all your users in one account, and automatically you can give them access to every other account. So the way you manage these accounts, or the way you control them centrally, is by attaching what we call a service control policy, SCP. You attach a service control policy, SCP, and this SCP is like a policy, or is a policy, not even like a policy. It's a policy that whatever you specify inside this policy is what is going to be rolled down to all the members of the organization. The accounts, every account that are part of the organization or that forms the organization is what we refer to as members of the organization. So if you attach a policy at the root level, that policy will be applicable to all the accounts, all the members' accounts. Let's say, for example, from this SCP, you now say nobody in any of the accounts should be able to create EC2. that nobody on any of these accounts should be able to create EC2. Then nobody, including the root user of each of the accounts, will be able to create EC2. Nobody, including the root user, because they are now serving as a member of the organization. So the organization is now the decision maker. So how this organization work is that you're going to have what we call an organization unit. So every of the accounts, the account that you create the organization from, because if you have like 3 accounts now, let's say you have 3 accounts, these 3 accounts, you're going to dedicate one of them as the management account. Let's say this is account A, account B, and account C. So you're going to dedicate one of them as the management account. Let's say you dedicate this as the management account. So this is now like the master account. So any policy that you want to give for every other account, you'll be configuring the policy from here. But the problem there is that the policy that you create will not affect this. So this will still be like a normal regular account, but you can from this account give permission or control permission to all the remaining accounts. So if you want, the way the account is, because you're going to have multiple accounts, you can now group those accounts together. There are 2 accounts that can do the same thing, or that is owned by the same department. You can control permission for that 2 accounts specifically. So if you go back here, okay, if you see this is the management account. From the management accounts, we need what is called a root organization unit or a root unit. So whatever policy that you want to grant, you will just attach to this root, which this is the root. So when you attach a policy to this root, it's applicable to every member under that root. Every member under that root. But let's say you have like 5 accounts. Okay, let me do something here. Let me clean this. Let me use 6 accounts and use that to explain something really quick. So let's say we have let's say this is TheCornelis. And Cornelis have, initially we have 3 accounts. And each of these accounts is for, let's say, Department A, Department B, and Department C. So because we want to manage all these accounts centrally, then we turn these accounts in Department A to our management accounts. So what that simply means is that this management account is now a master account. So account B and account C are now like a subordinate to accounts A and B. So if you want to give control or permissions to accounts A and B, all you just need to do is this is what we call a root. A root is just like a folder. So you just attach the policy here, and the policy will flow down to these people here. So let's say this department C, now because they are growing, they also have 2 different accounts that they manage. So remember, they have 1 account here initially. So now they have 3 accounts. What you can do is that you can group the 3 accounts together. Let me put it here. You can group the 3 accounts together, and because we don't want to attach permission one by one, we just group the 3 accounts together and call these 3 organization units. So this is 1 organization unit now. So any policy that you want to grant to these 3 accounts, you just attach it to the organization units, and it's going to flow down to 3 of them. And you can attach a different organization unit to this, because this is going to have a different policy. So if you look at this diagram here, this is exactly what I'm explaining here. You have the management account that has a root. Once you attach a policy to the root, it's flowed down to every member account, including the organization unit. But if there is any particular organization unit that also have an organization unit below it, you can also attach a policy directly to the organization unit. And if you attach a policy to an organization unit, it only affects the accounts under that organization unit alone. So let me take you to my AWS accounts and show you how we use this. So this one is the management account, because from these accounts, I have created my organization. You can see, if I go to the organization from there, excuse me, it's going to show me, see, look at this root. This root is telling me that this is the root account. You can see everything is like a folder. This is like a folder, and everything is inside this folder. So if I want to give any permission, I'll just attach it to this folder, and that permission will flow down to every account that is inside this folder. So if you open this folder, you will see that there are other, this is another folder. This is like an organization unit, like the account that is being used for security. All of them are under this organization unit. You can see we have 2 accounts under this unit. So if I want to control policy or permission for these 2 accounts, maybe I want to make sure that any users in these 2 accounts cannot create anything, they can only view, then I'll just create a policy and attach it to this security. And that policy will affect only these 2 accounts. Then you can see, you scroll down, you also see another account, which is a direct account here. I can attach permissions to these accounts also directly. And this is another security OU, which is security unit. And under that security OU, you can see this one too has another OU, which is a demo security testing, and this is a production OU. So if I open this production OU, it has only one account. If I attach any policy, you can see it's like an hierarchy from here. Okay, let me go from here. We have the roots, all of them are inside the roots. But if you look at this security and this security OU, they are like a siblings. They are not, they are that like on their own, but both of them are under this root. So if you open any one of them, let me open this. You can see it's also, this one has like 2 children inside it, or 2 or 3 cells, like 3. It has 3. 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2. It has 2, 1, 2. But if you open this production 2 has 1. So what all this simply means is that if you can control permission in an hierarchy way. So if I want to control every department, then I will have the policy here. I will attach the policy here. So the policy will flow down to every members of the organization. But if I want to only apply security to the security account, or policy to the security account, then I'm just going to attach the policy on this security. So if I attach a policy of the security, it's only going to affect the children or members of the security OU alone. So if I open this, you can see the member are just these 2 accounts. So it's going to be applicable. That policy is going to be applicable to only these 2 accounts. So that is organization. When we get to the solution architect, we're going to create our own organization. This is just for you to know that when you are managing accounts, do not only focus on managing one account. And if you are doing interview, stop talking as if your organization have one account. One of you guys, maybe not in this class, in my previous class, he went for an interview and he was talking as if he recorded his interview, but he was just focusing as the manage account, he creates user in that account, he sends user password, and they are trying to bring out words from him that, do your organization have one account? But he said no, but the way he's giving the answer is showing that he's only managing one account. Companies don't use one account, they use multiple accounts. And you should understand ways of managing accounts for our assets for multiple accounts. And like I said, I don't know if one of you that just got job of recent, that is the first task that they gave him, grant access to a user in 2 different accounts. And he has to create that. They already created the user in one account, because you have to, before anybody can have access to AWS, that person must first have an account in AWS. That's the first thing. It doesn't matter where you have the account, but you must first have an account in AWS. So that account or that username is what they will now use to give you access to every other account. You may not necessarily need, or they may not necessarily create you as a user on AWS. The company might, this is advanced and I don't want to bring advanced here. The company might be managing all the users in another account called identity provider. So they might be managing all their users in a different identity provider. They may use something like Okta. They may use OneLogin. They may use Active Directory. They may use CyberHack. A lot of them. And there's also AWS Identity Center too. So whichever way they are managing this identity provider, that is where the user will be created. Then once this user is created, they can link any of these together to their AWS accounts. So on the AWS account, what they just need to create is roles, and they will attach policy to that role. So these users, because it has been linked to AWS, so they will be managing the identity from here. That's why they call it identity provider, and then the authorization from the AWS. This is under advanced. And if you, okay, I don't know if you have access to the last class, which is under solution architect, we actually do this, and we did it with Okta, and I can't remember if we also did it with OneLogin, but I remember we did it with Okta, and we also did it with AWS Identity Access, Identity Management. So this is AWS organization. Don't sweat it. Just what you just need to, the takeaway here is just to know that when you are managing multiple accounts and want to grant access for a user or multiple user for in multiple accounts, you don't do it using single mentality. You have to do it using multiple, or you have to do it using organization. Let me just call it that way. If you have questions, you can stop me to ask your question. Open to answer your question if you have one. All right, let's proceed. Next topic. Okay, let me stop down. I put down a different video.